Well, welcome back, everyone. Lights, camera, action. It's Make Our World Your Runway. You know, this is the weekly show that interviews the most fascinating individuals from the world of modeling, fashion, beauty, business, and even the entertainment industry. And as always, we have a very exciting show planned for you today. But we always like to make a few announcements. And of course, we want to thank the sponsors that make this show so possible. And that happens to be the Global Trade Chamber, 100 Successful Women in Business, Lux Salon, Queen Beauty Network, Tower Club, Royal Dames, Vita Designs, Casa Calabria, and the Bangladesh American Chamber of Commerce. So sponsors, once again, thank you for making this show so possible. And I also want to tell our viewers, remember to subscribe to the Global Trade Chamber YouTube channel so that you can see all the shows from Make Our World Your Runway and Success Stories. And I highly recommend our viewers to tune into Success Stories because the show features the most amazing women in the world of business and community service. From humble beginnings to successful entrepreneurs, these women will totally inspire you. And of course, get ready for some exciting conferences, speakers, and awards as 100 Successful Women in Business and the Global Trade Chamber are going to come to a city near you. And that next city is going to be Tampa, Florida. That is going to be on July 17th, and it's going to be at the Embassy Suites, which is located on 513 Florida Avenue in Tampa, Florida. Now, these shows are always a sellout. It is free to attend, but if you want to be a speaker or you want to be an exhibitor, you must register now because I can tell you by July 1, it'll almost be a complete sellout. Take it from me because I've been there. So for further information on being a speaker, being a vendor, or even if you just want to sign up for free, there are two websites that you can go to, www.globaltradechamber.com, www.100swb.com, or you can dial our number at 954-839-8866. So once again, Women Business Expo Conference, July 17th in Tampa, Florida, which will be held at the Embassy Suites. So we definitely hope to see you there. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get on to our show. And as always, like I said, we have a very exciting guest in the studio today. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of what she does because she's so dynamic. It would take me almost a whole half hour to read her bio. But anyway, she's a dynamic entrepreneur, investor, and business strategist with a diverse portfolio spanning real estate, business development, media, and e-commerce. She is a permanent fixture on the hit TV series, The Real Entrepreneur, where they showcase real founders pitching their companies for growth, capital, mentorship, and strategic partners. And as a strategic partner with ConnectMD, she focused on helping individuals and business gain access to affordable healthcare solutions through innovative membership programs. Her passion for community impact and business development has helped expand awareness of ConnectMD's comprehensive telehealth, wellness, and healthcare access services, making quality care more accessible and convenient for diverse communities. And if you've heard me on my show before, that is one of my things, healthcare, telehealth, and making things more affordable for people out there. And she is also the visionary founder of Pho Beauty. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, and she's going to tell you all about her accomplishments, please welcome Karisa Smith to Make Our World Your Runway. Karisa, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You have accomplished a lot. Oh my God. I mean, like I said, if I had to read your whole bio, it would take me the whole half hour of the show. But we've got something in common here, which I like. Pho Beauty, it's a revolutionary skincare and makeup brand.
Yeah.
Okay. What made you get into that?
So Pho Beauty was actually created back in 2019, and it started out as makeup tools. And at the time, I had a bed and breakfast that I was running back and forth to Costa Rica. And my children were in North Carolina, and my daughter started high school at 12, college at 14. Right. My son was in all the activities, so I had to put it down for a while. And then COVID hit. So all of my suppliers, as with everybody else, kind of went away. So it was a little bit of a struggle. So I just decided to put it down for a while. But then fast forward when I got into the media space, and now I'm on TV, I'm now wearing lots of makeup. I had a very simple skincare routine before. It was Dove soap water. I saw Sybil Shepherd on a show one time, and she said she puts Vaseline on her face. So that was my routine. But now with wearing heavy makeup and full face of makeup, I needed, and getting older, I wanted something that was healthy for my skin, that would nourish, protect, and also repair the skin barrier versus putting chemical products on my face. So I created Pho Beauty, and I worked with several chemists to do that, to make sure that we had the most purest ingredients that we could get to have the effects that we wanted for the skin.
Exactly. You know, I started out in the cosmetic business, oh God, it must have been about 27 and a half years ago, okay? And funny thing is, a lot of people, it's not as widely used today, but years ago, the Japanese came out with a company called Shiseido. And they were more into skincare than were color. They had color. But their skincare was absolutely amazing. They had a facial cream that I could not believe. I mean, when you took your makeup off and you cleaned your skin with that, I mean, your face just glowed. But they did things differently. Here in the States, when you use a cleanser, you'd cleanse, you'd tone, then moisturize. They would do it just the opposite. They would cleanse, moisturize, and then tone. And I had asked them one time, I said, why is that the case? They said because they felt that when you use the tone, if you put the moisturizer on, use the toner, you were locking in the moisture. And then all of a sudden, serums started coming out. And I used to get women that used to come to the counter and say, well, what's the difference between the serum and what's the difference between the moisturizer? I said, okay. The serum, I said, is targeted. That's going to target certain areas. I said, but you need that everyday moisturizer to keep your skin nice, fresh. And what a lot of women didn't realize, and I didn't know this until I got further into my training, that putting foundation on was actually a treatment. It was the last step of skincare. They said you don't have to go with any eyeshadow or anything else. Put that foundation on, a little powder, you'll be ready to go if you're not going into business. And that was something I didn't know. So as I progressed into that business, okay, into the cosmetic business, I learned more and more. And when I was working for Bergdorf Goodman, and I was glad I had this training, because the first 5 ingredients in skincare is the most potent. And there were a lot of women that would come to the counter and didn't know why they were allergic to certain things. So I had learned that. But also, if you're on certain medication, you'd be surprised how skincare can react with that. And in Bergdorf Goodman, going way back, we had the distinct pleasure of actually studying with Dr. Fauci on solutions of skincare and why some people can use it and why other people cannot. So that was a great learning curve that I had. And also, one of the companies I worked for, Paco Rabanne, was a fragrance company, but a lot of people didn't know they had a skincare company, and it was actually called Emergency Skincare. And you would think, well, why would anybody want to buy that, okay? But they had a cream called the Emergency Cream. And I had a cut on my hand. I put that stuff on, and then 2 days later, it was gone. It was more medically induced type, okay, of skincare. So, and you know, when you work in New York City, there's all different types. You've got over 200 skincare lines trying to compete with one another. But that sounds very interesting, that Pho Beauty.
Yeah, and based on all of what you just said, those were the things that we took a lot of time to research, and which is why we have a serum.
Yes, exactly.
And we have a vitamin C super serum, which is 25% vitamin C. Also has ferulic acid, a lot of other vitamins in it to target certain areas of the skin. And what we do find is that it moisturizes, but it also lightens dark spots, which is exactly what we were trying to do, and brightens your skin all at the same time.
Yes.
Yes. And then we also have a moisturizing cream, which is our we call it our Hydra Silk Balm, because it's a niacinamide and hyaluronic acid water cream. And that really it goes on so smooth to moisturize, but it's also buildable. So you can build your foundation on top of it. It's not going to make it cakey. It's actually going to help settle it. And from a cleanser perspective, we have our off-duty makeup breakup cleansing oil. And so that is primarily all natural oils that we brought back that, you know, they used to use back in the day. So your grandmother would say, go out to that, you know, bush in the back, see the yellow berry and the red berry. Don't get the red berry, get the yellow berry. Peel off the skin and rub that on your face, you know. So like sunflower seed oil, rice bran oil, cloudberry seed oil, all of these things are really, really amazing for your skin. And when you put them together, they actually gently remove and moisturize makeup.
Yeah, they do. They will moisturize makeup, which is very true. I'm trying to think of the name of the skincare company. They had a moisturizer. It was really like a caviar cream. It looked just like caviar, okay? Back then, $500 a bottle. Wow. So on one day I said, now who's going to buy this? Oh, forget it. That counter manager used to sell out on it. But that was in New York City, Bergdorf Goodman, okay? So then I was also a rep and I used to go to all the different counters, okay? So I went to over to Macy's and I said, how are you doing with that caviar cream? Oh, we sold out. I said, geez. I said, $500. And all you needed was like that much. But what it did for the skin was unbelievable. And luckily for me, because I worked in Bergdorf Goodman, every time someone from a company would come in, we'd get all the samples. So I didn't have to buy anything, which was great. And then Elizabeth Arden, right down the street, had the Red Door. And they used to send us for facials once a month, complimentary of them. I said, how better can you get than that?
Well, that's why your skin is so beautiful to this day.
Well, you know what? It is hereditary. And there's another thing I just found out. My skin never breaks out. Even when I was an adolescent. I used to get it on my back, but I never get it on my face. All of a sudden, I got these 3 little pimples on the top. I said, wait a minute. Something's wrong. All right, let me change a few things. But because I have to take a statin because I have a heart condition, the statins now come in the form of a needle, and you give yourself the needle. And supposedly that's not a side effect of it, but when I really did some research on it, okay, there is some kind of plastic with this needle, and that is what I could be allergic to. All right, I don't have the other side effects that everybody else has, because it'll give you flu-like symptoms. Your back hurting, your arms, your legs, the bad headaches. I don't get any of that. But every now and then, I'll get a cold sore, I'll get a breakout. And it's always 48 hours after I take it, because you're giving yourself a needle, okay? It's the latex in there. The latex around it said, oh, okay. But see, if you don't know, and you don't really research on it, okay, all right, oh, well, I called my doctor. Well, that's not one of the side effects. I said, it's not? Why am I getting this? He said, well, I just read it. It doesn't cause that. Okay, I dug a little bit deeper, and I found, so it is the latex. So I got to tell him, I'm allergic to latex. What do we do? Go back to the pill form. So, but it's true, because one of the things I found in the cosmetic industry, which I'm not seeing today, which you're very well educated, but what I'm not seeing today behind the counters is that some of these girls are not as educated. And women are going in there and buying these products, not knowing really what they are buying, okay? Back in the day, I couldn't step on that counter unless I went through 6-8 weeks of training. So it's a little bit different. In fact, some of the places, they all know me. When I walk into Sephora, they say, well, we just got a new product, and do you know anything about that? I go, yeah. I said, what do you need to know? Aren't you getting any training on it? And they're like, no, we haven't seen the reps in weeks. I said, you know what, I'll do it as a favor. In fact, when I walk in, they go, uh-oh, here comes Meryl Streep. I said, you remembered. I said, just keep remembering that. But, I mean, that's just one thing you do, but tell us all about your TV series, because that's something that's up my alley as well.
Yes, so I'm actually on several TV shows. So I'm on Dining Divas TV, Destination Divas TV, but then also The Real Entrepreneur. And I love that show because, you know, it's a learning and growing environment. And throughout my career, I've mentored over 300 CEOs. I was on the board of the organization SCORE, where I was charged with diversifying, you know, our mentors. And if nobody knows about SCORE, it is an SBA resource that you can actually go in and, as you're growing your business from ideation phase to exit phase, work with very high level people who have done this before. So, for example, we had a lot of executives from IBM. I recruited in the CIO of CVS Health, because He was, in technology. And at this time, people get stuck at, technology space. So, and that was also my way of, giving back to the community. But I've always been interested in business, breaking down the businesses, understand how they work. And so any of my mentors, I'm like, how did you do this? What was your strategy? What was your thought process? All of those things. So the Real Entrepreneur actually allows me to do that. And we select 10 entrepreneurs and we put them through a set of 10 challenges. And then we also intentionally kind of stress them out with all of the twists and turns, because as we know, when you plan something in business, you can have your plan, but does it ever really go as planned? No. And you have to learn how to pivot, implement different things. You have to learn new things. And that's where the growth comes in. So we learned a lot from them, and also they learned a lot from us. But the winner of that series, or that particular that series, will come out with $25,000 seed money for their business, or they can walk away with cash, but then they always truly have the mentorship.
They always truly have that. And that's very important. A lot of, I don't care how many years you've been in business, you always need some kind of mentorship. My vocal coach always taught me that. She said, Angela, I know you graduated the Juilliard. You've studied with me. She said, you never stop learning. Okay? In fact, my husband just said to me when I was hosting that show last week, he said, for some reason, he said, you've always been great on stages, but I notice you're a lot more agile out there. You really get into it more. I said, well, by having my own show, and of course, Maria in the office here guiding me on a few things, and what you put that together, you never stop learning. It's just like with my husband, okay? When he first went in the automotive business, they didn't understand him. And the reason why they didn't understand him is because working in an executive sales position in New York, he was dealing with other executives, and they were putting in networks around the world. So he wasn't exactly dealing with the general public. He was so when he had to step down and work with the general public, not that he couldn't do it, but people just couldn't understand him because his aggressiveness was a lot more than the average person was trying to look at, okay? And I even told him today, he's got Friday, I can't begin to tell you how many customers were calling him. And everybody said to him, you're right, you're working for a dealership. Why not be a broker? You've got so many customers that call you. Why work for somebody else when you could build this business and do it for yourself? You could be selling for Cadillac. You could be selling for AutoNation, Chevy. You could do Infinity. You've got all that experience. Why not do it? So that program that you have, that's great, because I always feel you never stop learning.
I agree.
Okay? I'll look at something and say, geez, I didn't know that. I'll listen to the news and say, geez, I know I aced history, but I didn't know going back millions of years ago that even happened. I was like, Jesus, But what do you think about Resilience Rising coming up? I think that's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the Resilience Rising that's coming up. I'm excited to be leading the healthcare panel. Because with anything that we do in life, with anything that we do in business, your health is centered around everything, right? Because if you're not healthy, your company is not healthy, which means your employees are not healthy, your revenue is not going to be healthy. So, and just all of those little tidbits about that, and everything else that we've got a powerful line of speakers that I'm excited to learn about. We're going to have a fashion show, so that's going to be amazing as well. It's going to be a spectacular day.
Yeah, and I give Janelle 1,000 kudos for putting something like this on. I know she's like working night and day, but I told her, I said, get this one out. I said, and then the rest, I said, is just going to fall into place. But you're right, because you're into healthcare, and that happens to be a pet peeve of mine, is healthcare, because sometimes I just don't understand it. I always say, in this country, when I got to see people walking on the street, homeless people, and you see them walking with limps, or somebody has a heart attack on the street, you're not even going to know it, okay? I was in the hospital last year. All right, I'm pretty blessed. I got good health care. My husband's a veteran, so I can piggyback off of that. But there was a woman next to me, in the bed next to me, and I'm wondering why I'm getting all this well treatment. And, they're coming in taking care of her, and they said, well, she's on charity care. And I felt terrible because I said, here I am sitting here, and there's this poor woman, because they had to put her on charity care, she didn't have any health care. She wasn't getting the same treatment that I was. And I even got the administrator of the hospital down, and I said, I said, I'm going to say something. You might want to throw me out the window. I said, healthcare, I said, is not a privilege. It's a right. I said, reverse the situation. If you were in that situation, would you want to not be taken care of? Yeah. She said, you're right. I said, well, there you go. I said, and you know how many people have asked me to be an advocate or run for something in the town and healthcare? Yeah. And because that's just something, you're right. If you don't take care of your health, everything else is going to falter. Absolutely. Okay? And I'm lucky. I know what I have. They're watching something on me. I know what I have. I know what my restrictions are. I know what I can or I cannot do. But I'm the kind of a person, okay, I know what I have. You know what? It's in the back of my head, but I don't dwell on it on a daily basis. I keep moving. Yeah. And I think that's what keeps me going.
Absolutely. Yeah. And burnout is real.
Yes, it
burnout is absolutely real. So many entrepreneurs and, and high-level executives, we're working around the clock. We might not eat the way that we need to, but we're just constantly going because, we're implementing something new, building something new, or, just trying to finish these big, tough projects. Right. And we don't necessarily always remember to take care of ourselves. Right. And so when you start going through that and facing the burnout, I've faced that several times in my life. Mm-hmm. I faced it when my husband was killed in a car accident. Oh, and my children were very, very young. So now I've got these 2 kids and I've got this big job and I'm trying to figure out this new life that just, bam, was changed overnight. So, and you just go into overdrive. You go into survival mode and you don't know what's really happening. Yeah. So, of course, I hit a wall with that, Exactly. And then as you're building all these businesses, and even sometimes, I am a multipreneur, and I can work till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
I do that.
And often, but we got to remember to take time out.
You do have to take time out. Yeah. I was like that over the weekend. I had some people that came in from New York, business associates. Mm-hmm. I was so tired when I got home Friday afternoon. I said, wait a minute. I had to get on that couch. I passed out. Yeah. I said, that's it. I said, because if I keep going, I'm going to fall. And that's not good. So you have to take, even sometimes what I'll just do in the course of a day, I'll go to the gym, ride the bike, just to take that little time out, what they call the me time. And then my mind starts, I have to say one thing. My husband, he could be in the middle of a phone conversation. If he's hungry, that's it. Or he'll say, he'll even ask me in the afternoon, what time are we having dinner tonight? I said, it's only 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You just had lunch. Well, I got to keep my strength up, but I understand why he does that. Mm-hmm. Because he said, hey, if you don't have that sugar intake, if you don't take care of yourself, how are you going to go forward? What are you going to do, fall flat on your face?
Absolutely. And you know what? And sometimes you do. And, with ConnectMD, and that's ConnectMD with a K, KONNECTMD, the founder started this company, one, because he wanted, it was out of a personal, health, personal story, but he wanted everybody to have affordable access to health care. Yes. And have the same level of care. So no matter what membership that you have for us, and with ConnectMD, just really quickly, we're a healthcare membership that is not insurance. We provide 24/7 access to board-certified physicians. We have over 25,000 in our network. And we also provide urgent care, primary care, no copays, because we are not insurance. And you can put 7 additional family members onto your plan for no additional cost.
Oh, that is excellent.
Yeah. And then we also give free prescriptions. We have free behavioral health services that are encompassed in some of our plans. We have crisis lines. We also have programs where if people need a medication and it's exorbitantly high, we were just at a conference this weekend, and this lady was paying $25,000 a week for her medication. And it was a cancer medication. And I'm like, one, who can afford that, right? So she came on to ConnectMD, and we saved her over $10,000 a month, or no, over $10,000 a week with her prescription, because it dropped it down from 25 to 15. But then an additional program where she still she couldn't afford that, she could apply for that, and it'll drop it about 80%.
Wow. That is unbelievable. It's funny you should say that, because last week when they had the dedication for Obama's library and building, when he got up to make his speech, he mentioned something like that. He said the reason why, he said, we started affordable health care, because he said there was a woman that wrote him a letter that could not afford her cancer medicine. And that's why he did what he did. He was starting to get letters, and him and Michelle Obama were going out on the road and finding out. It's very true. There's a lot of people out there that cannot afford the medicine. It's just like this Repatha that I'm on. All right, I pay $30 for 2 needles because you take it every other week. But if I didn't have insurance, it's $790.
Yeah.
I looked at my pharmacist. I said, wait a minute, you want to say that number again? He said, oh, yeah. I said, well, what happens if people don't have insurance? He said, thank you. I mean, my cousin, she's on cancer medicine. She pays like $500 a month. Just for, I said, you've got to be kidding me. She said, no. She's, my insurance does not cover it.
Yes. And that's why ConnectMD is so important, because we work with veterans. You mentioned your husband is a veteran. You get veteran care. However, we do know that the wait times are excruciating for veterans. It could take, 2 to 3 months. Sometimes their appointment gets canceled. Like I come from a very long line of military family. So, and my brother, he experiences that too. They might have to cancel the appointment. You have to reschedule. And if it's something that's not life-threatening, and they just need to see a doctor, or they're asking questions about what's happening with my arm, or they can do that with us right from their phone, right from their computer, and they're going to be with somebody within 8 to 10 minutes.
That is excellent. And I'll tell you who's like that is my cardiologist. This, it blew me away, okay? They made a mistake on me in the hospital last year. They gave me too much fluid. My lungs filled up. And they had to put a tube down my throat, and I wound up in ICU. They didn't listen to my cardiologist. He was away. When he heard what happened to me, because his assistant called him up, he told his wife and his kids, he says, I have to fly back to Florida. He says, when he heard it was me, he said, it's Angela, I've got to go. It was about 7 o'clock at night. Now, by that time, they took the tube out. He walked in. I said, you are just the person I said I wanted to see. He said, when I heard it was you, he said, I had to come back. But he said there was no heart attack. The heart was strong. He said they just gave you too much fluid. I don't think that anesthesiologist is working in the hospital anymore, because we heard, me and the nurses heard him outside. He ragged on this guy. He said, you could have killed him. What were you doing? He said, you didn't follow my notes. He's the kind of a person, if I called his office this afternoon and he heard it was me, get her in here. Now, I'm with Humana, you have to have a referral. He goes, I'm not worried about the referral. We'll take care of it here. My husband goes to him. He'll be checking his blood pressure. Angela, get up on the table. I said, it's not my visit, it's his. So I don't have my referral. I'll take care of it. Get up there. I mean, I can't even get a scratch. He does a lot of telehealth. And my primary care physician, Dr. Etienne, another person that's like that. There was one, I'm going back about 2 years ago. My husband and I, we got a mild case of COVID. And we tested. It was 10:30 at night. I said, Dr. Etienne, we tested positive. He got right back to me. He says, I'm going to call Paxlovid the first thing tomorrow morning. So you are lucky on that, okay? And when I had my hip operated on, and again, it does have to do with rank, the doctor that operated on my hip, he was a captain in the Air Force. When he found out my husband was Air Force, I was 4.5 inches gated. You'd never know it. And he was also a neurosurgeon. What he did was, he took that hip, and he connected part of it to the back of the spine so that the brain could start sending some waves there. When they take an x-ray now, they see a shadow, but they said, you grew a bone. You sure you had a hip operated? I said, oh yeah. I said, I could tell you I did. You can't even see the scar. So you do get some doctors out there that care. Especially the ones, I mean, when my husband walked in here, if he didn't say he had open heart surgery, you'd never know it. He also had a captain of the Air Force. He was in their heart hospital, the military, did his surgery. And I find that the military doctors, they care, because they're in the battlefield. They're operating with bullets going over their head. Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of doctors who do care, right? And COVID, number one with telehealth, COVID proved and shifted the model. And it shifted it forever. And this is just the trajectory of healthcare. Like, there's nowhere else to go but telehealth for this. And we've really, helped pioneer that. But then we focus on working with some of the best physicians out there, right? And like you said with Humana, you have to get a referral, to go see a specialist. With us, you don't.
No.
So, and that's a great part of, our plans. And then also, we're in all 50 states and the U.S. territories and Guam. So if you're traveling to California and let's say you're getting a sinus infection, this just happened to me, you can go on your phone, click a button, urgent care, primary care, whatever you need to see. They'll call the prescription in for you right where you're at, and you can go and pick it up. So when I had my sinus infection after our premiere party, I was driving back and I'm like, I know what this is. I am so tired. I cannot afford a sinus infection. I got on the phone. I connected with an urgent care provider.
I gotta join this.
And everybody needs a part of it. And I'll tell you the best part about how affordable it is. But I connected with an urgent care provider. They said give him 2 hours. Our wait time is generally 8 to 15 minutes. He came on the phone, he saw me, he talked to me, heard my symptoms, and he said, okay, I think you have a sinus infection. We're calling you in a steroid. We're calling you in an antibiotic. And from start to finish, from my personal experience, it was 30 minutes. From the time I pushed the button, was at the pharmacy and picking up my prescription.
That's excellent.
And the prescription was free.
That is fabulous. That's something we need. But anyway, I've got the word from Max over here. We've only got about 4 minutes left. So what would you want to tell our viewers before we close the show?
A couple of things, just words of wisdom. Keep pushing. You can do it. I am a multipreneur. I've been doing it by myself. I am single mother. I've been doing this for years by myself. So if you apply, you educate, you get mentors, and you ask, there's nothing that you can't do.
I love that. Exactly.
And then the other things that I would like to say is just, how to connect with me. So my Instagram is I am Karisa Smith. That's Karisa Smith. And if you'd like to inquire about our healthcare, you can go to my website, which is www.myconnectmd, and that's connect with a K, now.com.
That's perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, this was a wealth of information. You definitely have to listen to the show. And of course, we're going to be at Resilience Rising on Friday, where she's going to be on a panel. I think they're going to be talking about healthcare there as well. So it's excellent. So I do want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule,
welcome.
to be on our show.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure to have you on Make Our World Your Runway. And ladies and gentlemen, as I always say, tune in every week because we always have another fabulous guest, but especially this Thursday, and please watch the show with Karisa Smith. So once again, thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.